Calls for FREXIT NOW are growing throughout France as support for Scotland independence surges. In this video, we're going to take a look at the rising support for FREXIT, the French version of Brexit, what's behind its growing popularity, and why the surge in support for the Scottish National Party promises that a new referendum for Scottish independence may be just months away. You are not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Wonderful to be with you as always. We're here to give you conservative hope in the midst of these turbulent and trying times by analyzing current events. It allows some super awesome conservative trends to help you to think better so you can feel better. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. We'd love to have you as a regular part of this channel. Also, for all you Rumble fans, we're making our way to 100,000 subs on our brand new Rumble channel. We'd love it if you could click on the link below and subscribe to that channel. And for you podcast fans, we're now one of the top 20 podcasts in the nation for political commentary. And so make sure to click on that link below and sign up for our various podcast platforms as well. Before we begin here, let's give a huge shout out to the sponsor of this video, and that's the Backup Solar Bank. In the midst of this whole emergency situation we have found ourselves in, one of the best things we can invest in for our protection when the lights go out is what's called a solar power bank. It's a backup power bank that's powered by the sun. It allows you to charge up to 2 devices at once. You'll never have to waste money on batteries ever again. Now, supply is limited, and this is the very last chance to get yours at a 20% discount before they sell out, so don't wait. Click on that link below right now and give you and your family the gift of power anywhere in the world. Click on that link below or visit backupsolarbank.com. That's backupsolarbank.com. You'll be glad that you did. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. We have got some major developments on the secession front. Now, as you know, if you're a regular to this channel, if not, I'll fill you in here. One of the key trends that we follow on this channel is the trend of secession that's been going on all over the world over the last 30 years or so. Really, ever since the Soviet Union fell on Christmas Day, 1991, when it lost a third of its territory literally overnight. Since then, over 35 nations have been added to the world map. So from Lithuania to Bosnia, Chechnya, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, Slovenia, Scotland, Catalonia, Quebec. More and more populations are turning increasingly inward for civic and cultural identity. Last week, we had Daniel Miller on as our guest for our Insiders Club Q&A, where our members got to ask him questions about all things Texit and the Texas nationalist movement. By the way, if you are interested, we've got David Horowitz tomorrow night as our live Q&A guest. So if you want to get to know David a bit and ask him your questions, make sure to sign up for our Insiders Club by clicking on the link below. You'll get your first week absolutely free. We definitely want you to join us. So we're seeing secessionism all over the world right now in all different kinds of outworkings and guises. And increasingly, it looks like France is ready to leave the EU, the European Union. And Scotland looks like it's getting ready to leave the UK. So let's look at these in turn. Let's start with France. It's being reported that French President Emmanuel Macron is under enormous pressure to hold a FREXIT referendum, a French version of Brexit. Now, the latest impetus for renewed calls for FREXIT has been the vaccine fiasco that's been bumbled by the EU, the European Union. Reported a few days back on how the Anglo-Swedish company AstraZeneca, which the EU has contracted to deliver the vaccine, having reportedly purchased upwards of 400 million doses, they recently announced that the vaccine rollout would be delayed due to production issues, which have been hampered by the EU's draconian and Byzantine regulation systems. And so, with the delays in vaccine procurement, European populations starting to get, well, obviously very, very upset. And it's being widely reported that the EU's vaccine fiasco is promising to work itself out in some pretty severe political consequences. And one of those consequences is a renewed push for FREXIT. Now, we have to remember the notion of FREXIT's already been rather popular. Just a few months after he was elected president, Macron admitted in an interview that if a referendum were allowed, the French public would most likely vote to leave the European Union. And his opinion was backed up by research from Edinburgh University that found that 53% of French would like to hold their own vote on EU membership. And we're seeing similar numbers, of course, in Spain, Germany, Sweden, where more and more people are in favor of holding a referendum than those who were opposed to such an idea. Now, this, of course, was before the coronavirus. Since the advent of the virus and all the draconian lockdown measures, talk of FREXIT, which had died down over the last couple of years, suddenly resurfaced. Last spring, John Keeger over at The Spectator published a fascinating article on whether the coronavirus would ultimately lead to a FREXIT. What he noticed was that the coronavirus was provoking a chorus among French voters who were all saying they wanted to take control back across the political spectrum. And this was because the epidemic was laying bare France's dependence on outside states for essentials such as masks, medicines, test kits, ventilators. Even President Macron was sounding the nationalist alarm, saying that the French will have to be far more independent and less reliant on Europe as a whole going on in the future. It's time for the French to start taking care of the French. Rhetoric like that. And so all of this has contributed to the return of the notion of FREXIT in the hearts and minds of an increasing number of French voters. So it's no coincidence that pundits are predicting that France will most likely be the next nation to leave the European Union. In the process, parts of France have once again descended into chaos. Violence erupted in Paris over the weekend among protesters demonstrating against new police powers as well as Macron's blundering coronavirus policies. And so Sky News Europe is reporting that the frustration with government's mismanagement, the draconian lockdown measures, they just simply reached a boiling point, and now the riots have started. And all of this instability is, of course, benefiting Macron's main rival, the nationalist populist leader of the right-wing National Rally, Marine Le Pen. Le Pen has been surging in the polls of late, past Macron, but guaranteeing her victory in the first round of presidential elections. I mean, the key is whether she could prevail in the second round, the runoffs, right, where the president has to get at least 50% of the vote. The French presidential election isn't far off. It's next year. And Le Pen is beating Macron upwards of 5 or 6 points in the polling. And if she can tap into this Frexit fever, as it were, she may have found her winning issue to unseat Macron. So these are fascinating and exciting developments happening in France for sure, but they're just the beginning. We're also finding that European secession doesn't stop from emancipation from the EU. In the UK, we're finding that it's extending into the very heart of national life itself. Now, before we get into that, I'm so excited to announce we do have a brand new alt-tech directory guide called The New Conservative Survival Guide to Big Tech Censorship, which you can get absolutely free by clicking on the link below. Now, this is a guide that's going to give you all of the different alternative social media, right? The alt-tech sites that are all popping up all over the place, that have all your favorite independent content creators, but without any of the censorship that we've been exposed to by big tech. It's also going to give you insights into what scholars are calling an emerging post-Google age. It is absolutely free as an ebook download, and it's yours simply by clicking on that link below. So don't let big tech censors get in the way of your favorite content creators. Click on that link below and enjoy your survival guide to big tech censorship today. All right, so the UK is itself experiencing the pressures of another possible divorce, and that involves the rising sentiments of Scottish independence. An increasing number of pundits seem to be talking about what some believe to be the inevitability of Scottish secession from the United Kingdom. According to counterpunch.org, the last 20 opinion polls all show that most Scots now favor independence, and this is at least in part manifesting itself in the dominance of the Scottish National Party at the polls. With elections just a few months away in May, the Scottish nationalists are poised to win a record majority in Scotland's devolved parliament, a majority that would almost guarantee another independence referendum like the one we saw back in 2014, where 45% of Scottish voters voted to leave the UK. That means it would only take a bit over 5% swinging the other direction to split up Britain. Now, this is one of the things that Nigel Farage was worried about with the Brexit agreement brokered by Boris Johnson. Generally speaking, Farage thought it was a good agreement. But among its problems, and there were many, but perhaps the single biggest problem, was actually the arrangement that was brokered for Northern Ireland, where Northern Ireland will continue to follow many of the EU's rules. It all goes back to the 1998 peace deal, which doesn't allow any customs checks or other barriers on the border between the Republic of Ireland, which is in the EU, and Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK. The peace deal requires a porous border between the two nations. But the important point here is that as a result of the Brexit deal that was successfully negotiated, Northern Ireland will remain under many EU rules, and thus it remains under a different constitutional arrangement than the rest of the UK. And what concerned Farage was that with Northern Ireland being effectively hived off, as it were, from the kingdom, coming under a different constitutional arrangement, he feared that that would have as a consequence the inflaming of Scottish secessionist sentiments. In other words, now that you have one part of the kingdom, in this case Northern Ireland, with a different constitutional status from the rest of the kingdom, that risks fueling the fires of other parts of the kingdom wanting their own constitutional distinctives and statuses, or in the extreme case, full Scottish independence. So the important point here, I would argue, is that the previous independence referendum that we saw a few years back in Scotland, given all these secessionist trends around the world, that may have been the precursor to the real thing here. And again, this is all part of this massive trend going on all over the world where more and more populations are turning away from transnational political structures and instead they're going back to nation, culture, custom, tradition as the way forward into the future. So we'll obviously be keeping our eyes on how things develop here, but there's no question that with the nationalist populist trends dominating the world's politics, the world map may be changing right before our very eyes. Now, before you go, make sure to like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel. And you'll definitely want to check out my latest video. I just uploaded it. This was too much fun. On how CNN ratings have tanked 44% as the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, launches a massive crackdown on big tech. You're not going to want to miss it. So make sure to click on the link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.